This is Josiah Young, and you're listening to Fascination Street Podcast.
Yeah! AV in your ears. That's Ambush Being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world. With my boy Steve, Fascination Street. You already know. Let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you...
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Kacy Ritter. Kacy Ritter is an author of middle grade fiction, and her first book, The Great Texas Dragon Race, is coming out August 1st through Clarion Publishing, which is an imprint of Harper Collins. In this episode, I talk about how I stumbled upon her while I was on vacation, and then we talk all about how she decided to become a writer. She had really cool traveling experiences as a young child, which I think, even though she might deny it, helped inform the genre that she's writing in. So we talk about that. We talk about her first attempt at writing a novel, which didn't go as she had planned. And that's sort of a through line where I tell her what she can do with that book throughout the whole episode. And then again, like I said, we talk about her book, The Great Texas Dragon Race. And we talk a little bit about her upcoming book, which she hasn't even finished yet, spoiler alert, which is called The Marfa Monster Mystery. It is another middle grade fiction book, and as soon as she's done, it'll be out, I guess. But for now, you can go check out The Great Texas Dragon Race. It is available for pre-order right now on Amazon. And like I said, it comes out on August 1st. That's tomorrow. So go check it out. And this is my conversation with middle grade fiction author and fantasy nerd, Kacy Ritter.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Kacy Ritter. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I cannot complain. Streetwalkers. A couple months ago, I was in Marfa, Texas. Actually, it was in June. My wife loves to go there. Well, we love to go there, but she likes to make that her birthday trip. So we drive from San Antonio to Marfa, and we just kind of hang out and literally do nothing because that's all you can do there. And that is one of the charms of it, is that you can't do anything there. Sometimes your phone doesn't even work, so that's cool. And while I was sitting there lounging by the pool, I pulled up my phone with the computer in it and things, and I went like this. I says to Twitter, or maybe it was Instagram, doesn't matter. I just put in hashtag Marfa to see what will happen. And you know what happened? I found this young lady, Kacy Ritter. And then it turns out she hasn't even done the Marfa thing yet. So it was super weird that I found her already. Ladies and gentlemen, Kacy Ritter is an author of what I assume we're going to call middle grade fiction.
That's correct.
Which I've never heard of that before in my entire adult life. But as it so happens, we are speaking to her, oh my goodness, barely 2 weeks from the release of her very first book called The Great Texas Dragon Race, which is released everywhere on August 1st through Clarion, which I think is an imprint of Harper Collins. Is that right?
That's correct.
Just so you know, I ordered 3 of them today. Pre-order, Amazon, everybody go get it. I'm so excited about this book. Kacy, what I like to do is I like to help the listener understand the guest by figuring out where they came from, you know, how you got to where you are. So where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up? And it better include the word castles.
And it might. Actually, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and my family just kind of traveled all over. My dad is, as many people who now reside in Houston, which is where I am, works in the oil and gas industry. So we left New Orleans when I was young, and then we took off and ended up in London, where we didn't live in a castle, but my dad did take us to nearly every castle he could find in the entire country. Which at the time when you're very small, I don't know, not that interesting.
How small?
So we moved there when I was 5.5. And so, you know, when you're 8 or 9, do you really care about that many tapestries and that many castles? I don't know. So we ended up in London. Then we moved over to Denmark. We lived in Copenhagen and crossed paths a little bit in Connecticut, which, wow, that was actually the culture shock. And then moved down to Texas when I was in 6th grade.
Oh my gosh. So from 5 years old to 6th grade, which is like what, 12 years old or something?
Yes.
You moved that many times? Like you saw the entire world in 6 years?
Yes. It was actually really great. I mean, I wish I had the appreciation for it that I could have as an adult, but still really awesome.
Isn't that the way it is with everything? Like, don't you wish you could go look at those castles now?
Totally. I mean, come on, let me go kiss this Blarney Stone, which I did before, but I mean, geez, how cool would that be today?
Well, today you'd catch COVID.
That's accurate.
At what point did you decide that did you always write stories and things when you were growing up?
I did. It's really funny. I have this small little book that I had written as a part of an English class when I must have been living in either Denmark or Connecticut at the time. And it was like, at the end of the book, you had to write, what do you want to be when you're older? And I said, I wanted to be an author, right?
You still have that?
Yes, I do. It's a cool little note. And so I was always really interested in poetry, really interested in stories, became really interested in world building as I got obsessed with fantasy in my middle school years and in my high school years. So yeah, it's kind of always been there.
I think it's funny that as soon as you stopped visiting castles all over Europe, then you're like, oh, you know what would be cool? Castles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I had to do that thing, what do you want to be when you grow up or whatever? I wrote alive, and so far, nailed it.
Done.
So you're writing all through the years and whatnot, and then life happens and you become an adult and you go do adult things and get a job and blah, blah, nobody cares. But
exactly.
At a certain point, not too long ago, you were like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a story about dragons in Texas where we don't have castles.
Right.
How did you come up with this story, and what made you put pen to paper? Like, what made you think you could write a novel? Everybody's like, oh, I'm going to write the great American novel. What made you think you could?
Well, the funny thing is failure. So I attempted to write.
Hilarious. Failure is hilarious.
Failure got me there. No, so I actually started writing another story that will never see the light of day.
Come on now.
I don't know. It was high fantasy, very castle-oriented medieval fantasy. I wrote this story. I wrote it to completion. And you know what? It just was not very good.
How long was this story?
The story itself was probably about the same range that my current novel is. So, about 90,000 words. I'm now at about 75 for the Great Texas Dragon Race, but it was pretty long, not as long as some epic doorstopper fantasies that we think about now. But I worked on it for a few years and, I had this realization that it was extremely derivative. I mean, the reality is I love high fantasy. I am a girl with Lord of the Rings tattoos on her. I am that girl who is just, if the TV show or the book has dragons, I'm in. If there's some magic, I'm in. So I was trying to basically write a story that was really similar to other stories I had written. And after that, failed, for lack of a better word, I started really thinking about, I want to write an American fantasy, right? I want to write a story that's not about castles, that's not this medieval world. I want to write a story about modern day Texas, where the only difference is that we have dragons. There's no magic. There's nothing else supernatural about the story. It's just modern day Texas. And in fact, the entire world is populated with various sizes of dragons. And there we go.
I got to go back to, you wrote 90,000 words of a book and then just threw it in the fireplace. Like what? How do you pick yourself back up from that? Like, how do you not go, well, I guess I suck, I can't do it?
I mean, if we all did that, we'd never get anywhere, right? I mean, you have to fail at some things in order to get to a place where you can do what's awesome. And I think that's one of the big things with art of any type, right? Is you're going to have a chance at something. You're going to take it. You might not do great, but are you going to persevere and try again? If we take a look at the stats of most authors who become, these large authors, J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, that's an extremely, extremely rare case where your first novel becomes this big thing. Most writers have tons of stories that they shoved in a desk that will never see the light of day, and, had stories that were published that were not successful. And so, I think that one of the things I've just really learned through my life is like, just because you fail at something the first time doesn't mean you don't try again with a different idea.
So I guess that's really where I was going, is that, you said, if everybody quit after they made a mistake, we wouldn't have anything, but most people do quit. So where did you get that perseverance from? Was it from your dad who was like, oh, on to the next castle? You didn't like that one? Let's go check out the next one.
A lot of it is from my family, and some of it is from my dad. My mom is also a very, very strong woman, big personality, and she is also an artist. She's a fiber artist.
A what?
A fiber artist. So she makes quilts. So she makes very weird, sort of psychedelic quilts.
Oh, she's a hippie.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They actually live in a place that was once called the Museum of Weird. So they live in their own castle here in Houston, basically.
Fantastic. Now I know where they live.
The interesting thing with my mom was she actually started out with really traditional quilts, and then one day realized maybe I can just make trippy quilts and started doing that. And so I think that plays a really key role. I was always a really driven kid. I'm the firstborn. I don't know if that does anything to you there, but I think maybe so. I really was. I was that straight A student who wanted to do the best.
Oh my God, you sound like my wife. My wife is the firstborn, and that is her. That is her to a T.
Yeah. Even when I went through really difficult times in my own, personal life, I was still I'm going to try the next thing, and I'm going to try to do it great.
How long did it take you to write this? After you wrote your first book and you were like, this is not what I thought it was going to be, and you shoved it in a drawer. I was kidding about the fireplace, hopefully, but you shoved it in a drawer. Oh, as a side note, I've talked to several authors who say that you should write your first book and set it in a drawer and then go back like a year later and read it just to see if it's any good so that you have some distance from it. Have you looked at it lately?
I have.
And you still feel the same way?
Still not interested.
All right, cool.
I think the really big thing is I've just become so enamored with Texas and the weirdness of Texas, the vastness of Texas, this strange ideology and sometimes conflicts that we have here in this state. And so I'm just really focused on trying to write books that feature Texas, and that story really isn't it. Now, I could come back to it in 10 years and maybe I'll say something different, but I'm really interested in writing stories in this state that I've fallen in love with, for better or worse.
I think you should release it under a pen name, but the pen name should be like a slight misspelling of somebody famous.
Perfect.
Like J.R. Rowling. Just release it under J.R. Rowling, or release it under the pen name Barack Obama.
That's pretty funny. I like it.
It'll sell like hotcakes. So you wrote that book, you set it aside, you said, this isn't really what I had thought I was going to do with my 90,000 words. How long was it before you picked up the pen again and started writing The Great Texas Dragon Race?
Immediate.
Really? You were just like, and I'm moving this and next.
Well, the thing was, I got to the end of that story and I was trying to write it out. And I just realized as I was writing that first story, it's not working. And so I had this, sort of writer's block as I was writing to the end. I put the end on it, and I just immediately had this other idea, which was, thinking about this young girl with red cowboy boots soaring through the sky in West Texas on her dragon.
That old trope.
Just that old thing. My husband was like, don't you want to go back and really edit the first story and really think more through that? I had already been through tons of revisions, and I was just obsessed with this dragon ranching, dragon Western idea. So that was history.
What was your husband's reaction when he watched you toil and sweat and cry and wad up paper and get frustrated and scream at him to get out of the room? I'm trying to concentrate. And then all of a sudden you're just like, just moving on. Was he like, no, that hurts me?
Kind of. I mean, he really wanted me to stick with the thing. But I think once he realized how excited I was about this new idea, because I just couldn't stop, right? So I wrote The Great Texas Dragon Race in about 18 months, and I was just obsessed. It was all I could think about. What different types of dragons would there be in this world? And what would happen during this great race across the Lone Star State. So, I think he pretty immediately saw that I was much happier once I started writing something that I was just very fired up about.
It occurs to me, you don't have to make up a name, just release it under his name. Haha, see how he likes that.
There you go.
So you have this idea, and I guess we've touched on it a little bit, but explain what the book is about, The Great Texas Dragon Race.
Well, the book is exactly what the title says.
All right, and scene.
Done.
No.
So the book is about a young girl named Cassidy Drake.
How old is Cassidy?
So Cassidy is 13.
Okay.
So 13-year-old Cassidy Drake lives on a ranch that is a dragon sanctuary. And when her family gets into trouble with finances, as one with a dragon sanctuary does.
I'm guessing any kind of sanctuary. Yeah, sure.
Right? She decides, I have my best friend dragon, my bestie dragon, who's very, very fast. We're great at racing. We are going to enter the Great Texas Dragon Race. And the Great Texas Dragon Race is a dangerous race across the Lone Star State where you race from place to place and solve riddles to get to the next place. So it's kind of like the show Amazing Race, except for on dragons across the Lone Star State.
Interesting. So there's also a puzzle element at each stage of this race.
Yes.
Wow. So did you have to write like a Bible for this so that you wouldn't get all your facts confused? Do you know what that is, like a Bible?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I don't mean like the Bible, but I mean like TV shows will write a Bible so they don't get characters confused and whatever.
Yes. So I'm a big fan of beat sheets, actually. And so when I originally started writing, I was using beat sheets that were sort of based off of Save the Cat, which is what I'm doing for my Marfa Monster Mystery book. And with that beat sheet, I also made tons of character studies and essentially a list of the different dragons that were going to be in these locations. And then I used a lot of Google Maps to figure out how long it would take these dragons to fly to these different locations, where they would go. So a Bible of sorts that really is just a ton of documents saved on Google Drive, all under the name The Great Texas Dragon Race.
So even though basically this story is invented out of whole cloth, there was still quite a bit of research that had to go into it just to make it work.
For sure. I've lived in a lot of places across Texas, but the thing that most people who are not from Texas don't realize is that Texas is so huge that we're not just the image of cowboys on flat ranch land. That's not what Texas is like. I mean, we've got it all, right? We've got the swamps, we've got the beach, we've got some mountains out in Big Bend. We have got, the vast deserts. We've got, tornadoes, everything else. We've got the hill country, which is just a totally different thing than anywhere else.
That's where I live.
Yes. And I used to live in the hill country as well. I also lived down in South Padre Island. And so, I've been to a lot of places in Texas, but there was a ton of research that really went into taking these places that I had been to in Texas or visited and figuring out what were some interesting landmarks that could be involved that these dragons could interact with and these players could interact with.
Wow. Where in the hill country did you live?
Kerrville, Texas.
Get right on out of town.
Yeah.
That's 40 minutes from, maybe 35 minutes from where I am.
So close.
That is the home of the very first HEB.
In case you didn't know, which I do.
And most people listening don't know what HEB is.
That's true.
This book, The Great Texas Dragon Race, which again comes out August 1st everywhere. It's available for pre-order right now on Amazon, though. It has been awarded a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard Collection Seal Award. How did that happen? The book's not even out yet. How is it winning awards already?
So the interesting thing that happens with publishing is there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes before the book is ever released. And so the book gets sent to a ton of different people who, maybe are people in the industry, right? And so you have librarians, teachers, other publishers, people who are just interested in books in general, reviewers. And as those books get sent out, you end up with things such as reviews that come out well before the book is released, or, different seals or awards. And so this Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection is really a mark that we've had a bunch of people who are educators and librarians who've taken a look at the book and said, hey, this is worth sending to libraries across the country, and we're going to sign off on that. And so there's going to be about 1,400 copies of my book that are going to land in libraries across the U.S. as a result of that. So it's really, really exciting.
I found this out a few years ago when I was talking to an author. The American public library system has a unique kind of a little twist in that if you go to your local library and they don't have the book that you want, they'll order it. So everybody listening, go to every library you can and get them to order The Great Texas Dragon Race. Well, let's turn that 1,400 into 14,000 libraries.
Let's do it. I love it.
Oh, also, here's a fun thing to do. Bookstores like, I don't know, Barnes & Noble, an actual bookstore, the publishers pay for how the book is displayed. And so, like, if you're walking down the shelves and you see just the spine of the book, that means they paid nothing or almost nothing to have it just on the shelf. But if you see the book turned out to where you can see the cover, then that means that the publisher paid a little bit more so that it would draw the attention of a passerby.
Yep.
And so also what I would suggest is that you go to every single bookstore in the world and you pull out The Great Texas Dragon Race and just turn it so that the cover is showing. That's what everybody should do.
Front face all of them, you know?
Front face all of them.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Hey, Streetwalkers. This month, the month of August, I have a special treat for you. This whole month is going to be themed. That's right. This month is Jewish matchmaking themed. So I'm bringing you exclusive interviews with 3 members of the cast and the actual matchmaker herself, all from the Netflix TV show Jewish Matchmaking. Season 1 is out and available now. My wife and I enjoyed it so much that I reached out to all these people to see if I could get them on, and boom! They were all gracious and generous enough with their time to hang out and let us get to know all of them a little bit better. So pay attention. Every Monday this month, the month of August 2023, each week will be a cast member from the show, finishing up with the actual Jewish matchmaker herself, the host of the show. I'm not going to give any names. You can check it out. You can look for it. You can just wait. But you will enjoy every single one of these interviews, I promise. And tell a friend.
Let's get back into it.
You know, you see all these TV shows or whatever where somebody has a great idea for a book and they write a whole book and then they just send the manuscript to a bunch of different... How did you end up getting a publisher to come on board?
Wow, the publishing process is so much more complicated than I originally realized when I started writing a book. And so it wasn't even a matter of sending it off to publishers. I had to find an agent who was willing to work on my behalf so that they could submit it.
So first you have to find an agent.
So first, you got to find that agent. You really have 2 routes, right? You could be a self-publisher and you try to self-publish your novel and do your own thing, or you can try to be traditionally published. Most publishing houses are not going to accept a manuscript unless it comes directly through an agent. And so in the beginning, I actually had to contact dozens of agents and send them copies of my book as it was written at the time and say, hey, are you interested in this? In hopes of getting an offer of representation from that agent who would then be willing to work with me to get the book to a publisher. So,
Jesus.
Yeah, it is, wow, a difficult process.
Okay, and so this first book, like I said, is released through Clarion, which is an imprint of Harper Collins. Now, your next book, which is not done yet, so of course we don't know when the first one's not even out yet, Steve, calm down. The book that you're working on, which is upcoming, which is kind of how I found you based on the keyword search of Marfa, It's called the Marfa Monster Mystery, and that is going to be through Harper Collins as well. Is it going to be through Clarion or Harper Collins Big Boy, or like how?
Just a different, so Harper Collins Children. So it's just a different component of Harper Collins, a different imprint.
Okay. I'm sure that this is maybe a little too in the weeds, but how come it's not Clarion? Do you have any idea why it's going to be a different imprint?
That's really not anything that's kind of on my end. I mean, Harper Collins deals with things internally, and that's where it landed. So
how about this question? The book's not even out yet, so they have no idea how well it's going to do.
Mm.
How good does it feel that they've already staked a claim on your next one before they even see the results of the first one?
Yeah, it does feel pretty great. I mean, I will give you that. Thank goodness that. And that was really something that we decided was like, hey, my agent and I, let's just go ahead and try to submit this proposal for the other book now, because if the first book bombs, then I don't know, but maybe they'll take a chance on me with this, with this one too. And it was really exciting that my editor was also into this idea.
So the editor, like you said, your editor, but just so that I'm clear, publishing houses have in-house editors that work for them, but with you. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Sort of a team effort?
Yes, exactly.
I watched the TV show Younger. I know all about publishing. What is the Marfa Monster Mystery book going to be about, if it's not too much of a spoiler?
Oh, no, there's no spoiler about it. It is about a group of young kids, again, 13, who want to save their monster community from the human skeptics. So in most books, the monsters are the scary ones. And this one, maybe the humans are the scary ones. I don't know.
So the Marfa skeptics are the ones who go to Marfa and they don't see the lights.
I mean, something like that, So the setting for the Marfa Monster Mystery is really taken from El Cosmico, which is, for people who don't know and haven't been there, sort of a vintage trailer park, awesome place to stay, very bohemian. And so that is actually the setting that is going to be used in this book, but it's called something different. It's Vince Vance's Vintage Trailer Park Inn for Monsters. And so it's a vintage trailer park inn where tons of different monsters who've come from all over the world are like, oh, let's settle in this wonderful Marfa area. But, Marfa is also surrounded by some humans who don't really like a bunch of monsters living there.
As a side note, yes, we have stayed at El Cosmico, and I don't know if you know this, but word on the street from the locals in Marfa is that El Cosmico was sold and will be moving.
That is so depressing on a deep level.
Isn't that the worst?
Oh, the worst.
So supposedly some giant company bought it and is moving it somewhere else. And I'm just like, why? Why buy something that's so awesome and then ruin it?
No.
Like, you bought it because it was cool. Leave it there. Just own it.
Right.
Are you still throwing words at this book? Is that word count still going up?
The Marfa Monster Mystery?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. So I'm currently under a deadline for that book.
Oh, you're welcome for wasting your time today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just took time to do this out of my very busy schedule, which also includes a full-time job and a 1-year-old child. Wow.
Just so you know, that means it includes 2 full-time jobs.
That is correct. It's a lot.
Congratulations on the baby, by the way.
Thank you. She's the cutest little thing in the whole world, but wow, is she a cute distraction as well, So yes, I'm under deadline on that book. The word count is going up. I have a rough draft that I need to get to my agent in about the next month.
All right. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm totally sane over here.
Sure, yeah, I bet you are. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the things, well, not some of the things, but sort of a thing that I saw in your Instagram feed, because you know how you mentioned your mom likes weird, freaky stuff, and then by extension, so do you.
Yes.
You actually posted, it was a recent post, but I think it was commemorating a trip like 3 years ago that you and your husband took to Meow Wolf. Now, was the Meow Wolf that you went to the one in Santa Fe?
We went to the one in Santa Fe. We'll be going to the one in Grapevine here in a little bit over a month. We also went to the one in Vegas here recently. That was probably the post was from the Vegas.
I think it was, yeah.
Omega Mart.
I think that was it. So my wife and I went to the one in Santa Fe a few years ago, like we took our kids. Our kids are, well, now they're 30, but they were in their late 20s then. And we, just took a road trip right before COVID, I think. Maybe it was after, it doesn't matter. So we took a road trip and we went to Santa Fe and went to Meow Wolf, and we were like, this is the bee's knees. This is so cool. And then at some point later, my wife and I went back, just the two of us. And then, boom, they opened one in Vegas, they opened one in Denver. And you mentioned they opened one in Grapevine, which I think, as we record this, I think today is the day it opens.
Yes. Yep.
Now, what's really cool about that is that a week from today is when my wife and I leave to go to Grapevine. We already have our tickets for next Saturday for the Grapevine Meow Wolf. We are very excited about it. And you, I'm sure you know this already, should be also excited because word on the street is that Houston is getting one next year.
We are. It's going to be out here in Houston, not too far from where I live. I'm very excited for all the artists to just jump on it.
The one in Grapevine is in a mall, like it's part of the Grapevine Mills Mall. The one in Santa Fe was a bowling alley. Do you have any idea what the previous history of the Houston building is going to be?
I actually don't know. And I'll tell you this with Meow Wolf. For me personally, I want to learn as little as I can about Meow Wolf every time I go, because I want to be just absolutely astounded and excited by what's there. So for instance, I didn't realize that the Santa Fe Meow Wolf was in an old bowling alley that George R.R. Martin had paid for and subsidized for people to come and do this work. I try not to look at pictures, or I try to look at absolutely nothing because I want to get there and be stunned by the awesomeness.
I am kind of that way. My wife has just been watching all these videos about, what's happening. And she's very excited. She's like, do you want to see? And I'm like, no, I don't want to see it. No, don't spoil it. I want to be surprised.
Yeah.
You said like in a month you're going or something?
Yes. So I'm actually going, and I have some, bookish related events and signings that I'm doing out in the DFW area. And so one of the days, I actually have a day where we're not going to do anything. And so my husband and I are going to, trek over there and have an awesome time, I'm sure.
Well, I don't know if it's the kind of thing that you might be into, but my wife and I are very excited that also opening, I guess, right around the same time as the Meow Wolf. It may be open right now already. I don't know. And I think maybe even just across the hall or something from it is a Korean corn dog stand. Yeah.
Noted. Check that out,
Yes, we're very excited about that as well. So, like I said, my wife and I are going to Meow Wolf. It's our anniversary trip for our 21st anniversary.
Congrats.
Thank you. And that's just a kind of a fun little getaway. It's, we're just going to go up there for the day or a day and a half or whatever and come back. No big deal. We're just going to have a blasty blast. But I think that everybody who goes to Meow Wolf should just post everything. Don't post. Well, you can post some pictures, but just post it and hashtag the shit out of it like you did on yours. That's how I found it.
Yeah.
This is going to sound so weird and maybe even backhanded, but hopefully it turns out okay when I say this. I think that Meow Wolf is the kind of weird, freaky, out of the box art that I am assuming, because I haven't read it yet, is what's in your book, at least your first book, The Great Texas Dragon Race, because it's got to be some kind of a weird, freaky mind to kind of come up with not only the Meow Wolf concept and the art inside it, but also this crazy story that you just picked this little 13-year-old girl with her red cowboy boots. So hopefully those two things are going to go hand in hand, like I can only imagine. And then when they open Meow Wolf San Antonio in 2030, it's going to be all Texas Dragon themed.
I'm really into it. Let's do it.
I will call R.R. Martin. Oh, release it under R.R. Smartin. Release your first book under okay.
Writing it down, handled.
Kacy, tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you and the work that you're doing.
Yes. To learn a little bit more about me and the novel that's coming out here soon, The Great Texas Dragon Race on August 1st, check out kcritter.com. So that is just a K and a C, Ritter.com. You can find information about where I'm going to be in terms of events. You can learn a little bit more about the book and how to buy it.
And again, like I said, it's right now it's on pre-order at Amazon, and they will mail you an actual hardcover copy. I did notice that when I looked at it last night or this morning or whenever, the book was like 17 something for the hard copy, but it says like audio CD. You did an audio book for this?
There will be an audiobook coming out. Now, I'm not 100% sure who uses compact discs, which for people who don't know what a CD is, it's a compact disc. So there will be a version of that that's an actual physical copy, but there will also be an audio version that will be available via audio and other things like that. That will be significantly less money than the compact disc version.
Also, I'm sure there's going to be a Kindle version. There's probably Kindle versions already, right?
There will.
Everybody go get all the versions. How about that?
Yeah, just all of the versions.
Just get all the versions. You know what? Get the hardcover versions because the cover looks beautiful. Who did your artwork?
The artist that we worked with, and actually it wasn't even a pick from me, it was the editor. It's Peter Antonsen. He actually does some really great artwork for things like Star Wars, which I'm a huge geek, so I'm really into, anything. He had illustrated a lot of other dragon type books before. He just does really, really great work. And so he actually also made for the inside of the book some really cool dragon schematics for Cassidy Drake's Dragon Field Guide.
Wow.
Inside the book, you'll have some of those fun little details as well.
That is super cool. Again, The Great Texas Dragon Race is a middle grade fiction book, which I guess is for everybody to read who is in the middle grades.
Yeah, so it's really 9 to 12 is really the...
Oh, what? That's terrible. You cut it off right before the protagonist age. What a weirdo.
But it's not weird because here's the thing is most kids have a tendency to read up. Most children don't really want to read about protagonists who are younger than them or even their age. They're more interested in looking at that next level, sort of what am I looking forward to? And so when you write characters, you're really kind of keeping that in mind. So young adult fiction, for instance, the protagonist is almost always 17, which is on the higher end of young adult, which is considered high school years. And that's where those 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old readers tend to look up to because that's what they're moving towards.
Aren't you smart? Is this something you learned before you started all this writing process, or did you learn this as you were navigating the getting published minefield?
I wanted to know what I could do to write a book that would potentially sell. And so that involves a lot of research just about the publishing industry. And so there are some standards such as word count that are really important to think about before you go to agents and try to pitch your book as one that they should take on and try to pass to publishers.
Wow, interesting. That's a really cool tip. I never would have thought that. Since you're into dragons and magic and nerds, well, until I read your new book, my favorite author is a guy named Raymond E. Feist. Have you heard of him?
No. Tell me about it.
Oh my gosh, you're going to love this. I read these books to my son when he was a baby, and he still loves all of these books, and he's 30. So it's called the Rift War Saga, and it starts with a book called Magician Apprentice, and then it goes into a book called Magician Master. And then there's like 4, 5, 6 books after that. But if you like everything that you said you like, you're going to love this and you're welcome. So go check that out for sure.
I will do it. I actually wrote that down with a pen.
No, ooh, a pen, not even a pencil, guys.
Woo!
Casey, give us a book recommendation. I gave you one. Give us some.
Yeah, I am really, really loving, the Skandar series. So a while back, they were talking about, there was this big thing came out about this author who had written some stories about bloodthirsty unicorns. And I thought, well, obviously I am into that. And so, Skandar and the Unicorn Thief, which is also a middle grade book, came out a couple years ago and then recently released Skandar and the Phantom Rider. And so that is the second in the series. Very, very cool. The author is A.F. Stedman.
That's Oprah's husband, right?
No, but really just such a cool, fun series.
Nice. Bloodthirsty unicorns. I'm in, right? Oh my goodness. That sounds great.
That's a really boiled down version of what it actually is, but it's fantastic.
That's going to be my review of Meow Wolf Grapevine. That's all I'm going to put. It's just hashtag bloodthirsty unicorns. Kacy Ritter, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic, still writing under deadline schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit more on Fascination Street. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
It was 100% my pleasure. And before I let you go, is there anything I didn't ask you about or we didn't talk about that you specifically wanted to talk about today? Did I miss anything?
No, we got to talk about castles and dragons. I'm great.
And bloodthirsty unicorns.
There we go.
And Meow Wolf. We did it all.
Yeah.
We even somehow managed to throw in HEB. That's weird.
Did it.
Kacy, thank you so much. Again, I really, really appreciate your time. And you go get back to writing and playing with that baby.
I will do it. Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Bye-bye. Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jax Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend, subscribe, and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.